Alright, let's do this. Time to feed the viewers. Oh, by the way, hello viewers. Another beautiful day. Hope your five senses work. Health and strength is good or excellent. Alright, so Wine 10.0 release with native Wayland support. Better HID PI. As expected this week, Wine 10.0 stable release is now available as the newest annual feature release to this open source software that allow running Windows schemes and application on Linux and other platforms. Wine also serves as the basis for Valve, Steam Play, Proton, and CodeWeaver crossover software. It says Wine 10.0 brings more 6,000 changes that builds up over the past year. In bi-weekly Wine 9.xs development release, there are many new Wine 10.0 features, including better HID-PI support for scaling on modern display. The Wine Wayland driver is working fairly well. New experimental mode settings, emulation, and optimal FFmpeg multimedia backend and initial Bluetooth driver, ARM64EC support, full Dvorak keyboard support, updated DXVK and other Direct 3D support, enhancement, and many other improvements. Download and more detail on the big Wine 10.0 stable release via Wine HQ. Hopefully there will be active ticking up soon around Proton 10.0 for Valve Steam Play to further enhance Windows gaming experience on Linux. Now, let's go over to Wine HQ and see what did they bring to the table. It says their release note. The Wine team is proud to announce the stable release Wine 10.0 is now available. This release represents a year of development effort and over 6,000 individual changes. It contains a large number of improvements that are listed below. The main highlights are the new ARM64EC architecture and the high DPI scaling support. This source is available at, I will leave the link. Then it says binary package for various distribution will be available from the respective download site. You can find documentation. Okay, here I'll leave all the links. It says the Wine author thanks to the work of many people. See the file authors for a complete list. Now let's get through this. It says here, okay, ARM64. The ARM64EC architecture is fully supported with features parity with the ARM64 support. Hybrid ARM64X modules are fully supported. This allows mixing ARM64EC and plain ARM64 code in a single binary. All of Wine can be built as ARM64X by passing enable arch equal ARM64, AArch64 options to config. This still requires an experimental LLVM toolchain, but it is expected that the upcoming LLVM 20 release will be available to build ARM64X Wine out of the box. Then it says the 64-bit x68 emulation interface is implemented. This takes advantage of the ARM64EC support to run all the Wine code as native, with only the application x86-64 code requiring emulation. No emulation library is provided with Wine at this point, but an external library export the emulation interface can be used by specifying its name in the HKLM/software/Microsoft/WoW64/AMD64 registry key. It says the FX emulator implement this interface when built as ARM64EC. It said it should be noted that ARM64 support requires the system page size to be 4K, since that is what the Windows ABI specifies. Running on kernel with 16K or 64K page is not supported at this point. Then it's subtopic graphics. High DPI support is implemented more accurately, and non-DPI aware windows are scaled automatically instead of exposing high DPI sized application that don't expect it. Compatibility flags are implemented to override high DPI support either per application or globally in the prefix. Vulkan Child Windows rendering is supported with the X11 backend for application that needs 3D rendering on child Windows. This was supported with OpenGL already, and the Vulkan support is now on par. Then it says the Vulkan drivers support up to version 1.4.303 of the Vulkan specs. It also supports the Vulkan video extension. Font linking is supported in GDI+. Subtopic, desktop integration. Says here a new opt-in mode setting emulation mechanism is available. It is very experimental still, but can be used to force display mode change to be fully implemented instead of actually changing the display settings. The windows are being padded and scaled if necessary to fit in the physical display as if the monitor resolution were changed, but no actual mode setting is requested, improving user experience. Then it says a desktop control panel applet desk.cpl is provided to inspect and modify the display configuration. It can be used as well to change the virtual desktop resolution or to control the new emulated display settings. Display settings are restored to the default if a process crashes without restoring them properly. System tray icons can be completely disabled by settings no tray item display, that's one word, -1 in the HKLM/software/Microsoft/Windows current version /policy/explorer key. Then it says shell launcher can be disabled in desktop mode by setting no desktop equal 1 in the HKLM /software/Microsoft/current version /policy/explorer key. Then it says subtopic Direct3D. It says the GL renderer now requires GLSL 1.20, extension _ frame buffer _ object, and ARB _ texture _ none _ power _ off _ 2. The legacy ARB shader backend is no longer available, and the off-screen rendering mode setting has been removed. It says shader stencil export is implemented for this GL and Vulkan renderer. A HLSL based fix function pipeline for Direct3D 9 and earlier is available, providing support for fixed function emulation for the Vulkan renderer. It can also be used for the GL renderer by setting the D3D setting FFP _ HLSL to non-zero value using the registry or the wine _ D3D _ config environment variable. Says the Vulkan renderer uses several dynamic state extension, if available, with the goal of reducing stuttering in games. Then it says an alternative GLSL shader backend using VKD3D shader is now available and can be selected by setting the D3D setting shader _ backend to GLSL-VKD3D. Current VKD3D shaders GLSL support is incomplete relative to the built-in GLSL shader backend, but is being actively developed. Another subtopic, Direct 3D helper libraries. Says here initial support for compiling Direct 3D effect is implemented using VKD3D shaders. The D3DX9 support many more bump, map, and palletize formats. D3DX9 supports saving palletized surface to DDS files. D3DX9 supports map generation when loading volume texture files. D3DX9 supports reading 48-bits and 64-bits PNG files. Okay, Wayland driver. Says here the Wayland graphics driver is enabled by default, but the X11 driver still takes precedence if both are available. To force using the Wayland driver in that case, make sure that the display environments variable is unset. pop-up window should be positioned correctly in most cases. OpenGL is supported. And then it says key auto dash repeat is implemented. Multimedia says says here a new opt-in FFmpeg based backend is introduced as an alternative to the GStreamer backend. It is intended to improve compatibility with Media Foundation pipelines. It is still in experimental stage though, and more work will be needed, especially for D3D-aware playback. It can be enabled by setting the value disable GST bytes stream handler, that's one word, equal 1 in the HKCU/software/wine/Media Foundation registry key. And then it says Media Foundation multimedia pipelines are more accurately implemented for the many applications that depends on the individual demuxing and decoding component to be exposed. Topology resolution with demuxer and decoder creation in auto plugins is improved. And then it says direct music supports loading MIDI files. Subtopic input/HID device. Raw HID device with multiple top level collections are correctly parsed and exposed as individual device to Windows application. Touchscreen inputs and events are supported with X11 backhand and basic multi-touch support through the WM_pointer message is implemented. Mouse window message such as WM_L button, ampersand, what's that? Star, comma, then WM_R button, star, comma, and WM_mouse move are also generated from the primary touch screen. Says here a number of user32 internal structures are stored in shared memory to improve performance and reduce Wine server load by avoiding server round trips. Then it says an initial version of a Bluetooth driver is implemented with some basic functionality. It says the joystick control panel applet joy.cpl enables toggling some advanced settings. Then it says Dvorak keyboard layout is properly supported. Now, another subtopic, internalization. It says locale data is generated from the Unicode CLDR database version 46. The following additional locale are supported. And then it says KAA-UZ, and then LLD-IT, comma, LTG-LV, and then comma, and MHN-IT. And then it says Unicode character tables are based on version 16.0.0 of the Unicode standard. The time zone data is based on version 2024A of the IANA time zone database. Subtopic, Internet and networking. Says here the JavaScript engine support a new object binding interface used by MS-HTML to expose this object in a standard compliant mode. This eliminates the distinction between JavaScript object and host object within the engine, allowing script greater flexibility when interacting with MS-HTML objects. Built-in MS-HTML function are proper JavaScript function objects, and other properties use accessor functions where appropriate. MS-HTML supports prototype and constructors objects for its built-in objects. Function objects in legacy MS-HTML mode supports the call and apply method. The JavaScript garbage collector operates globally across all script contexts within a thread, improving its accuracy. JavaScript array buffer and data view objects are supported. Now, another subtopic, RPC/COM. RPC/COM calls are fully supported on ARM platform, including features such as stubless proxies and the typelib marshaller. All generated COM proxies use the fully interpreted marshalling mode on all platforms. Subtopic C runtime. C++ exception and runtime type information, and then in parentheses is RTTI, close parentheses, are supported on ARM platform. And then it says the ANSI function in C runtime support the UTF-8 code page. And another subtopic, kernel. Kernel process. Kernel process elevation is implemented, meaning the process run as a normal user by default, but can be elevated to administrator access when required. Disk labels are retrieved from dbus when possible instead of accessing raw device. Mail slots are implemented directly in the Wine server instead of using a socket peer to allow supporting the full Windows semantics. Synchronous wait for serial ports events are re-implemented. The previous implementation was broken by the PE separation work in Wine 9.0. And then it says the full processor X state is supported in thread context, enabling support for newer vectors extension like AVX-512. Then it says Mac OS, when building with Xcode greater equals 15.3 and on Mac OS, the preloader is no longer needed. System call emulation for application doing direct NT system calls is supported on Mac OS Sonoma and later. Then it says built-in application. The input parser of the command prompt tool CMD is rewritten, which fixes a number of long-standing issues, particularly with variable extension, command chaining, and for loops. The Wine debugger WineDBG uses the Capstone library to enable disassembly on all supported CPU types. The file comparison tool FC supports comparing files with default option. The Fine STR application support regular expression in case insensitive search. The RegSVR32 and Run DLL32 application can register ARM64EC modules. The sort application is implemented. The Where application supports searching files with default option. The WMIC application support an interactive mode. And then it says miscellaneous. The ODBC library support loading Windows ODBC driver in addition to Unix driver that were already supported through libodbc.so. Then it says optimal symmetric encryption padding OAEP in parentheses is supported for RSA encryption. Network sessions are supported in direct play. And then it says what do we got here? It says development tools. The IDL compiler generates correct format strings in interpreted stub mode. Then in parentheses this is /OICF in mid-L.exe on all platform interpreted. Mode is now the default. The old mix dash mode stub generation can be selected with WIDL-0s. Says the IDL compiler can generate type lib in the old SLTG format with --OLD TLB command line option. The WineGCC and WineBuild tools can create hybrid ARM64X modules with the MARM64X option. That's MARM64X option. It says here the WineDump tool support dumping mini dump tables, C++ exception data, CLR tables, and type lib resource. And almost done here. It says here the subtopic build infrastructure. The make deb tool generates a standard format, compile underscore command dot JSON file that can be used with various IDEs. Using the dev files as import libraries with Wine GCC is no longer supported. All import libraries need to be in the standard A format. If necessary, it is possible to convert a dev library to a format using wine build -imp lib -e and lib f00.dev -0 lib f00.a. Says here, static analysis is supported using the Clang static analyzer. It can be enabled by passing the --enable SAST option to config. This is used to present code quality report with the GitLab CL. And then, last but not least, I think this is, oh yeah, one more. It says here, build subtopic build libraries. It says Capstone Libraries version 5.0.3 is bundled and used for disassembly support in the Wine debugger to enable disassembly of ARM64 code. This replaced the bundled Zydis library, which has been removed. VKD3D is updated to the upstream release 1.4. Faudio is updated to the upstream release of 24.10. Fluid Synth is updated to the upstream release 2.0.4. LDAP is updated to the upstream release of 2.5.18. LCMS2 is updated to the upstream release of 2.16. Lib JPEG is updated to the upstream release 9F. Lib MPG 123 is updated to its upstream release 1.32.9. Lib PNG is updated to the upstream release 1.6.44. libtiff is updated to the upstream release 4.7.0. libxml2 is updated to the upstream release 2.12.8, and libxlt is updated to upstream release 1.1.42, and zlib is updated to upstream release 1.3.1. And then finally, external dependencies. The FFmpeg libraries are used to implement the new media backend. AP cross compiler is required for 32-bit ARM build. Pure ELF builds are no longer supported. Then in parentheses it says this was already the case for 64-bit ARM. And then it says lib on Wind is no longer used on ARM platforms since they are built as PE. It only uses on x86-x64. So yeah, that's that. So yeah, they did a lot of work here. So you Wine experts, and you Linux administrators, engineers, programmers, technicians that game on Linux, Windows, Steam Deck, enjoy. That should hold you for now till the next big update. So until I think Proton.10.0. So yeah, this was pretty good. So you guys are good for now. So yeah, enjoy, man. And that should hold you for now, you know. Yeah, these developers, they put a lot of work into this stuff, man. And put a lot into Wine, you know. Whether it's Wine or Proton, these developers, they work. And C++ is being used a lot too. I remember riding, I went on the train one day and I was coming off, and I remember getting off the train and I remember two people were arguing over C++. But you know, and now C++ is being used. So yeah, it's not how fast to me. It's when it comes to these programming languages, it's not how fast how you use it, is when you use it, you know. So yeah, sometime at the time C++ might not be needed, but in the years to come it might be needed, you know. So yeah. So at the time, this was like before the, I remember this was before the pandemic. I remember they were saying like C++, it's a, what they say, it's a dumb language, or and they were really arguing over it. But now it's being used now, so yeah. You know, sometimes it wasn't needed maybe then, but now in these times of our tech, C++ is really needed, you know. So if you're versed if you're well versed in like in C and C Sharp and C++, oh yeah, you got a good job. You're good. Your career is set, man. You're good. Anyway, and if you have Java on top of that, oh yeah, you're good. But anyway, man, yeah, another update to Wine, man. There were 16 comments on this earlier. I'm sure the debaters and the politicians went off in that section. Let's see what they talking about here. Let's see here, who we got. Let me see if I can zip through this. Let's see here. Who's this? Who's first up? Who's this? What's that? K Jail said this. Let's wait for Penguin PC to know if it's a good release. And then who was this? And then Paper said this. He said heck yes. And then Dacty said this. Is the Wayland backend enabled by default in this release, or do you still have to tell it to use Wayland manually? And then you said this. Do you use Wine for application or for games? Question mark. What application and games do you use Wine for? And then who is this? Who is this? The true Colonel. He said this. Yeah, it should be enabled by default. And who is this? Who is this? Mango said this. To clarify, it is built by default now, but it will still default to launching via X-Wayland in a Wayland session. While Wayland plugin is much better than it was, it's still not a complete parity, so it is not default to. And then who is this? And then Avis said this. He said, when people ask questions like this, I start to wonder whether you actually use PC at all. Oh my God. Then he gave some my example. Anyway, then he says Linux has web browsers and blenders. Almost everything else is subpar or doesn't exist at all. Games? Question mark. Linux hasn't seen any AAA titles in a decade now. I want a game. I reboot into I guess Windows 11, WL11, Wine plus DXVK. Thank you, but no thank you. I want to be able to run everything, not limited set with a random bug. Who else is this? And then Jump said this. See what he's talking about here. He said agreed. For most part, if your needs aren't met by other Linux alternative, although there is a version of a spec for Linux by the actual developer himself, and XenView MP is close enough to the Urfran view for my needs. Although I use Urfan view in the field at large sporting events such as ATP and WTA tours and the PGA tours for image conversion to be used for Jumbotron's display at one event back in 2010. I was presented an Ubuntu laptop that did not have Wine nor the admin rights to add it, so I could use the Urfran view inside Wine. Someone had installed XenView MP and other fiddling a bit for a day before the event showtime. I was able to proficient with it, and it met all my conversion needs. Still use it at home, but previously your mileage will vary. Who else is this? Let's see, who else got a comment? Let's see what they talking about here. And then, who is this? 666 said this. That's MRG, that is. It says, why don't you, he says, he's responding to Avis. He says, when people ask questions like this, he says, why don't you just delete Linux and use Windows for everything? Blender and browser run on Windows too. BTW. After that, please delete your Phoronix account on the way out. He said, to answer the original question, I use Wine only for games, as included with Steam. No game glitches, nothing. All games I want run just fine. Yeah, these guys are ridiculous. And then GPF said this: clap, 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 clap. And then he said, who else is this? Nocifer said this. What he says? Contrary to what you said, Linux is superior in almost everything except useless niches crap from the 2000s era of computing, high specialized software like Photoshop, and you know this is to be true. Hence, why you can't shut up about it. Everybody and their mother know that Proton plus DXVK plus VKD3D plus Proton plus DXVK / VKD3D has won the day by a mile, and there are no real bugs to speak of. Case in point, the massive success of Steam Deck. Practically every AAA game for Windows is a AAA game for Linux as well nowadays, with some rare exception now and then. Oh, and of course with the real huge exception of offline FPS games, but that's a sore point. That is more political than technical in nature. And again, you know all this already. I like you more back when your attempt at trolling had at least a truthfulness in them. Nowadays, you're just reduce yourself into a sad little nobody. Have a nice day. Yeah, they're just going off in the comment section. Anyway, Windows versus Linux users. It says, Furta said this: it's sad that the Wayland patches aren't ready to be the default yet, but I hope it will get ready in staging before Wine 11. This and CEF being Wayland ready are my expectation to this year, so Wayland can cover all my use cases. And who was this? Avis. They just going off in the comment section. And then Avis said this: it's funny how rampant Linux fanatics, most of whom have neither filed a single bug report nor made a single contribution, try to banish the person who has been contributing to Linux non-stop for over 25 years and also supervise Linux kernel bug trackers. It's also sad that the Linux cult turned normal people into belligerent haters. No, Linux does not belong to you, and it also doesn't make you unique or special. It makes you look sad and pathetic when you fail to recognize its shortcoming. And I will continue to use the set application under Wine and games under Windows. Have a nice day. Anyway, who else is this? And then Kruger said this: does Wine 10.0 include the NT sync patches? Will it work once we get Linux kernel 6.14? I can't find anything in the release notes, so I guess not. I hope we won't have to wait another year to test it, and they will release a minor 10x version, including. Anyway, who's this? Dacty said, this was my actual question. Thanks for the answer. And then Nocifer again. Here he goes again. These guys are ridiculous. He says, and what shortcoming would these be? I refuse all your points one by one, and now you are simply playing stupid in a desperate attempt to save your face. Where are your counter arguments to all to all those Linux apps I listed, do you even have any? No, I don't think so. Here's a joke for you. There's a guy who decides to go hunting in the woods. After a while, he spots a bear and think to himself that it will make for a nice trophy. He shoots at it, but unfortunately misses the shot. The bear says, "You miss your shot now, so I will have my way with you," and proceed to do the but then he let him go. Next day he says a wannabe hunter returned to the woods and try once more. He spots the bear and he shoots at it, but again misses the shot. The bear says, "You miss your shot, so now I'll have my way with you again," and proceeds to violate him. He says, next day hunter goes to the woods and try again. He spots the bear, he shoots but misses the shot, and the bear says, you know the drill," and proceed to do the deed again. Next day the hunter goes to the woods. He shoots at the bear and misses the shot, and this time the bear says, "Come on, dude, I will do you." He said, "I'll do you again, but at least admit it. You're not coming here for the thrill of hunting bears. I will leave it to you to discern the hidden meaning behind the jokes. Again, have a nice day, Mr. Linux Kernel Bug Tracker Supervisor." Oh my God. Linux users versus Windows users, man. The saga continues. Anyway, and then who is this? Volta said this, "And yet you still don't have a clue about Linux. Furthermore, many of the apps you mentioned are a joke. Linux has much better alternative to most of them. Winamp trash, Point other trash, Win SBC trash, Irfan View, stop kidding, File Manager trash, Photoshop wouldn't even touch it because they are Krita and Gimps." Oh my God. And then Volta said this, "I hope so, and I hope Fedora 42 will have this for default." This is what happened in the comment section. They just go at it, man. And they be joking. And then let me get out of here. Then who was this? RMFX said this. He said I approve. Even Photoshop is crap compared to Affinity Photoshop now. So all the mentions are a fail. I agree we miss a few key software on Linux, but I feel like things may change if we finally find a common distro to target. SteamOS, that's your new job. Then he says SteamOS, that's your new job. Now we have a Flatpak, Pipewire, Wayland in good shape. Better 3D drivers since Vulkan. Linux is much less of a mess it was 10 years ago. That is true. And then High Value said this. Interesting, is Wayland native already in Proton? Yeah. Linux, Windows, the saga continue. Who's better? It's just the way it is. Anyway, but that's all the comments and news comments in the entire article, man. So hope you guys enjoy it. These Linux and Windows users, man, they always going at it. Who is better? It's kind of like the AMD versus Nvidia drama. The clash of the big boys, man. It never stops, man. But you know what? Competition is good for the market, man. That's what I say. So yeah, it gives people something to talk about. Oh my God. But yeah, we see how crazy the Pharonics comment section get when it comes to Windows versus Linux, man. Oh yeah. But you know, Wine is always improving. Proton is always improving. But when Valve brought the Steam Deck forward, man, yeah, it was a green everything. It was like a new spark, a new energy, it was like momentum shift. So yeah, they needed that, man, and yeah, they've been looking good ever since, you know. But Proton, Wayland, Wine, they're always getting updates. So yeah, that's it. You know, these developers are always working at this. So yeah, but the fans of Linux and Windows are always going to be competing against each other about who is better. Anyway, I'm gonna leave this video for y'all to enjoy though. Nice talking to you people again. Chris, those Star Wars and Star Trek thing. Poor Dark Section. Go. Peace.